During the AIDS epidemic in the late 20th century, many people with the virus were discriminated against and denied basic human rights. But Princess Diana saw the responsibility that others ignored. She stepped forward as a fearless advocate, fighting for those who had been cast aside. She challenged the stigma surrounding AIDS, embracing patience and demanding compassion when others refused to listen. Diana took on the responsibility of defending the rights of the marginalized and inspired a movement that continues even today. Through public action and deep personal connection, she not only changed how the world saw these issues, but also ensured that her fight did not end with her. In the early 1980s, a terrifying new disease appeared, AIDS. Because it was wrongly labeled the gay plague, it was associated with the LGBTQ community, and victims faced brutal discrimination.
A mystery disease known as the gay plague has become an epidemic unprecedented in the history of American medicine. Topping the list of likely victims are male homosexuals who have many partners and drug users who inject themselves with needles.
The lack of knowledge about the disease led to harmful misconceptions, such as the belief that AIDS could be spread through casual contact. This misinformation led to widespread discrimination, and many infected lost their jobs, housing, and even medical care due to fear. The normalization of homophobia and the tragic isolation of those affected became common in society.
You know, I would like to be very angry, and I think there's a level at which I am very angry about that. That just because my friends and I are gay, if we are affected by this disease, that no one really cares, that it seems that we deserved it, so let us die.
By 1981, AIDS had reached epidemic levels, and the stigma against those infected only worsened. Politicians began taking advantage of the stigma and abused it. For example, politicians like Jim Cotter used the stigma and homophobia to attack the LGBTQ community and popularize himself. By encouraging the stigma, the fear of AIDS took a toll on the LGBTQ community's place in society. As more people were detached from society and word of the AIDS epidemic spread, it grabbed the attention of Princess Diana of Wales. Diana often found herself at odds with the royal establishment despite her royal status and popularity. Having experienced isolation and public scrutiny herself, Diana felt a deep empathy for those ostracized by the AIDS stigma. Her compassion for those suffering and willingness to break tradition led her to take on numerous charitable causes. She used her platform to challenge misconceptions and advocate for those affected by the disease, demonstrating a profound sense of compassion and a commitment to breaking down barriers. In April 1987, Princess Diana's dedication to challenging the stigma surrounding AIDS culminated when she visited the Middlesex Hospital in London. There, she opened the first purpose-built AIDS ward, making a pivotal moment in her advocacy. Despite warnings not to physically touch patients, Diana famously said, "Why? I know what it's like to be ostracized, and I know what it's like to be left in the corner of a room." By shaking hands with patients without gloves, she publicly defied the myths surrounding AIDS transmissions.
Princess actually helped get that message across by the mere fact that she wasn't wearing gloves and the mere fact that she shook hands with the patients and myself,
offering not just symbolic support, but real personal connection. This act of compassion humanized AIDS patients and helped shift to public perceptions of the disease, showing that they deserve dignity and not fear. But her compassion didn't just stop in the UK. In 1991, Diana visited Harlem Hospital in New York City, where she comforted children battling AIDS. One of the most iconic images from this visit is of her hugging a young boy, a gesture that captures the world's attention and sent a powerful message. AIDS patients, especially children, were not to be feared or abandoned. Diana's embrace wasn't just a physical gesture, it was a symbol of the fight against misinformation, stigma, and isolation that had plagued AIDS patients. That same year, she traveled to Casa de Esperanza and São Paulo Hospice for abandoned children with AIDS, where her visit highlighted the plight of those affected in the most impoverished conditions. Diana's presence at these homes were more than ceremonial. It was deeply personal. She gave these children the one thing many had been denied: dignity and visibility. At the time, there was widespread fear and misinformation and ignorance surrounding AIDS, which only increased the discrimination against those living with the disease. Diana's decision to publicly engage with people living with AIDS not only helped humanize them in the eyes of the public, but also helped reshape how governments and organizations worldwide approached the crisis. Her outreach helped raise awareness and led to practical changes in healthcare funding and policy worldwide. In 1991, the World Health Organization and UNAIDS were greatly influenced by her involvement in spreading information about AIDS prevention and treatment.
The opportunity is simple. HIV does not make people dangerous to know, so you can shake their hands and give them a hug. Heaven knows they need it. What's more, you can share their homes, their workplaces, their playgrounds, and their toys. We all need to be alert to the special needs of those for whom AIDS is the last straw in an already heavy burden of discrimination and misfortune.
While Diana faced resistance and lack of support from within the royal family, she knew that real change required more than her voice. She forged a network of allies who shared her compassion and worked alongside the National AIDS Trust and brought in figures like Elton John to spread awareness. A close friend praised Diana's advocacy and joined her in raising awareness for AIDS. Their partnership helped amplify the message that AIDS was not just a medical crisis, but a human rights issue deserving of compassion and urgent attention. Even as the royal family distanced themselves from her work, she doubled down, using her fame to amplify the voices of those ignored by society. Through her efforts, she didn't just help those suffering, she also inspired others to take on this responsibility. However, Diana's work would come to a halt on August 31st, 1997. On that day, an unfortunate car accident occurred, which ended with the tragic death of our beloved Princess Diana. But Diana's impact extended far beyond her lifetime. Her tireless efforts to destigmatize AIDS and promote compassion left a lasting legacy, earning her the title of the People's Princess. Her work would later be continued through her son, Prince Harry, and other supporters. Prince Harry in particular has taken up his mother's mantle in advocating for AIDS awareness.
When my mother held the hand of a man dying of AIDS in an East London hospital, no one would have imagined that just over a quarter of a century later, treatment would exist that could see HIV-positive people live full, healthy, loving lives.
In 2006, Harry launched the Centerbell Foundation, which helps children and young people affected by AIDS in Southern Africa, an area where the epidemic remains one of the most severe. His commitment to the cause is evident. Notably, after he publicly underwent an AIDS test in 2016 to combat the stigma surrounding the disease and encourage others to get tested. Another significant figure who has continued Diana's work is Elton John. In 1992, shortly after Diana's death, Elton John founded the Elton John AIDS Foundation, which has since raised millions to fund AIDS prevention, treatment, and care.
We are not yet close to achieving what Diana's gesture bids us to do. When we began this work, there was pressure within government to target resources away from people who were already sick and onto those who were not yet infected. I was convinced then that attention had to be paid to everyone.
The foundation has been instrumental in shaping the way the world thinks about AIDS and funding life-saving therapies for individuals in need. Elton John has continued to honor Diana's memory by ensuring that the causes she cared about most continue to receive global attention. The Elton John AIDS Foundation is a major player in the fight to end AIDS globally, and Elton John has often spoken about how Diana's courage inspired him to take on this battle with even greater passion. The popular Netflix series, The Crown, shows Princess Diana's works throughout her life. The show portrays her visits to hospitals and clinics, highlighting her compassion for patients and her efforts to challenge the disease's stigma. The series also depicts her challenges within the royal family, emphasizing her courage and determination to use her platform for good. Along with the show, a play called Casey and Diana is a tribute to Diana's visits to Toronto's Casey House. The drama emphasizes her actions of sympathy, where the stigma had shattered the mental state of patients in the Casey House. This displays her experience, the issues she challenges, and allows the current generation to embrace this sense of unity and passion. Diana has provided significant values to the research and overview of AIDS, as raising awareness of the disease brought forward new discoveries to be made. The public began to encourage less discrimination of those with AIDS and turned to educating views of reducing the spread via protection. New ads started to be created to encourage the use of condoms and other sorts of ways to reduce the spread. This includes things such as the National AIDS Trust PrEP, a daily pill used to reduce the risk of obtaining HIV. Princess Diana was not just a humanitarian, she was a fighter. She fought for the rights of AIDS patients and used her platform to fight against stigma. Princess Diana upheld the rights of those living with AIDS and took on the responsibility of helping others when the royal family chose not to. She proved that someone must step forward when the world turns its back. And because she took on that responsibility, others have followed in her footsteps. Her actions left a lasting message on how important it is to stand up for human rights and show how one must take responsibility. Her work inspires others to make a difference, proving that one person's compassion and dedication can leave a forever lasting impact. Her message remains clear: compassion is a duty, and justice is a responsibility.